Hello everyone, it's me, Aaron, Professor Thorgy, your guide to all things geeky, and this is it. This is the video that this entire month has been building towards. Because you see, all month long we've been looking ahead to 2017, but also looking back at 2016, and this was the biggest video that we've been talking about all month long. This is my top 100 comics of 2016. Behold! Wait, actually, before we get into it, like with any of my top X number of lists, there are going to be some ground rules. And for a top 100 list, there are going to be a lot of ground rules. So, for anybody who just wants to skip ahead to the actual list and doesn't care about the ground rules, jump to this time right here. There you go. Jump to that time. Click on the little bar down there, right there. There you go. Oop, up. You got it? Cool. Okay. But for everybody else who wants to stick around, let's get into the ground rules. First ground rule that I gotta say is that unlike last year, where I put all 100 things into one video, this year I am dividing it up because last year that almost destroyed my throat trying to fit 100 books into one video. I was drinking ginger ale for a week after that, so we ain't doing that this time. Today I'm just covering numbers 100 through 51. Next ground rule that we gotta talk about is that I know some of you out there are going to be asking, well, by top 100, do you mean the 100 best books of the year or your 100 personal favorite books of the year? I know some people are asking, well, what's the difference on that? The difference is that when I say the 100 quote-unquote best books of the year, I'm talking about the books that I look at and just judge them on the quality and how well they speak to the audience that they're aimed at, even if that audience isn't me. Even if I didn't get a personal connection to that book, I look at the audience it's aimed at, look at how well it spoke to them. I also try and judge how competently was it written, how good did it look, how good was the story in there, even if it's a story that didn't personally affect me. Whereas top 100 favorite comics would be, what are the stories that personally affected me? What are the books that I got the most enjoyment out of? And honestly, this is going to try and be a bit of both, because I want to judge them by like just quality and the talent that went into them and just make a list of the quote-unquote best books of the year. But I also know that it's physically impossible for me to remove my own personal taste from this list, so there are going to be some books on here that I probably put way up there that a lot of other people probably wouldn't even put on their top 100 list to begin with, just simply because I personally love these books and I can't ignore that. But at the same time, I'm not just going to come in there and go, well, this is the one that I enjoyed the most, so it's got to be number one, because even if it's the book that I enjoyed the most, I'm going to still try and look at it and see, okay, well, what might have been some of the flaws that can bump it back down? What are the qualities that other books had that could put it above this? I mean, I'll go ahead and let you guys know right now. My personal absolute favorite book of the year is around number 7 or 8 on this list. It did not crack the top 5 because, yeah, I know there were other books out there that were way better than that one. I'm not going to tell you what that book is because that's how you tease an audience. Now let's get into the most important ground rule, which is what does and does not count as a comic for the top 100 comics list. Now, the most obvious type of comic to include on this list is regular actual comics, the type that come out every single month, the type that come out with multiple issues. Those of course do count for the list. However, there is a rule that I am placing on them, which is that at least 2 issues of your book have to have come out in 2016. I'm doing this because we have all read those series that had amazing number 1s, and then every issue after that has kind of just been so I'm not going to count some amazing first issues like Motor Crush and the brand new Hulk series, because despite how good their issue number 1s were, yeah, only 1 issue came out. See you guys in 2017. Now, of course, like to any rule, there is an exception, and the exception for this is, of course, one-shots. If you were a one-shot, then you don't have to put out a second issue. I will judge your one-shot by itself because that's all that there was. So that is the exception to the 2-issue rule. Now next up is original graphic novels. If you were a graphic novel that collected single issues that came out in 2015 and your graphic novel was released in 2016, that doesn't count because the source material inside of it came out in the previous year. However, if you were an original graphic novel, a book that was made solely to be a graphic novel, not to be single issues that were collected into a graphic novel, that does count for the 2016 list. Now let's get into the type of comics that will not count for the best of list. And the first type of comic that will not count is manga. Nothing against manga, I'm a manga fan myself, I have a lot of manga fans out there. However, I'm not counting manga for two reasons. The first reason is simply because if I started counting manga, that would almost double the number of books that I would have to consider. And the second reason is simply because if I counted manga, it would raise too many questions. Because like I said, I have very clear-cut rules for the regular comics and graphic novels of what does and does not count. However, when it comes to manga, do I count just the stuff that got released in English this year? Do I count the stuff that got released in Japan and I was able to find online, translated in less than legal ways this year? Or what about things like Shonen Jump? Shonen Jump gets legal translations the week after it comes out in Japan over on Comixology. So can I count that? But that's an anthology series, so do I count the magazine itself? Do I count the individual stories inside of it? Also, isn't that a little bit unfair to count that book even though other magazines over in Japan don't get the 1 week translation period? It just raises too many questions. And because of that, manga just doesn't count. The next type of comic that does not count for the best of list? Webcomics. And again, it doesn't count for two reasons. First reason, same reason with manga. If I was to start counting webcomics, it would double if not triple the number of things I would have to consider for this list. But also, the other reason why I'm not counting webcomics is because honestly it seems a little bit unfair to webcomics. Because when it comes to physical comics, I fully believe that yes, it is hard to get your book out there, but if you can get your book into stores, then I believe that even if you don't get a large audience around it, if your book is good, there will still be at least some kind of an audience out there that will point to it and go, this book is really good, you need to read it, which means that if I search around online, I can find people recommending it. As I said, that audience might not be huge, I might have to search for a while to find them, but I will eventually find people recommending that book to me. However, there are so many webcomics out there, and it is so hard to promote your webcomic on the internet and to get people to start paying attention to it. I fully believe that the best webcomics in existence are probably ones that no one has ever found because they are that hard to promote and it is that hard to get your product out there. So it just kind of seems unfair for me to declare what is and is not the best webcomic out there when I personally believe the best webcomic out there is one no one has ever heard of yet. However, as I said, like with any rule, there is an exception. And when it comes to webcomics, I am placing one exception on it, which is if your webcomic got a physical publication this year, I will count it. For example, the webcomic Octopus Pie has been going on for many years on the internet. However, this year, Image Comics put out 4 volumes of that webcomic in actual physical trades. So those actual physical trades that came out this year do count for this list. However, any installments of Octopus Pie that have come out online but did not end up getting collected in those first 4 volumes, like anything that will end up eventually being in volume 5 if that ever comes out, that doesn't count. This is starting to get really confusing, but I hope you guys can follow that. But okay, enough jibber jabbering, enough rules, I've delayed this long enough. Ladies and gentlemen, the top 100 comics of 2016. Behold! At number 100, Slam. This is the cutest darn book you are ever going to read about roller derby in your life. It's a story of 2 friends who find themselves and find courage through this sport. Number 99, Gutter Magic. This is a book that was overlooked by many people, but imagine a D&D campaign mixed with noir back alley crime activities. It's a really creative book that definitely deserves a look from anybody who considers themselves a fantasy fan. Number 98, Tomboy. This is the dark, gritty, real-world take on Sailor Moon you never knew you wanted, but always needed. Number 97, HUCK. This was a story from Mark Millar about a simple man who just wanted to do right by other people, and in a world filled with so many gritty, real-world takes on characters, like the one I just mentioned 5 seconds ago, it was actually very refreshing and the artwork was gorgeous in it. Number 96, Violent Love. 1 part crime story, 1 part romance. This is a modern-day Bonnie and Clyde story that is super stylish and with great protagonists. Number 95, Wrath of the Eternal Warrior.
I will admit, even though I love many of the Valiant characters, the Eternal Warrior has always been one of those characters who I've been kind of meh on. He just never really struck a chord with me, but this was the book that really made me care for him and really realize what an interesting person he was. Number 94, Plutona. When a group of friends find a dead superhero in the woods, it starts them down a dark journey that serves as a metaphor for just how hard it is to grow up in the real world. Number 93, KARNAK. It's Warren Ellis just being allowed to be as crazy as he wants as he comes in here and completely redefines the character of KARNAK. And yes, you guys know me, you know the problems I've had with Marvel's Inhumans over the past couple of years, but dang man, I have to applaud a book that is willing to get as crazy as this one did. And speaking of books that I was opposed to until I read them, number 92, Unbelievable Gwenpool. I was completely against the idea of Marvel just trying to cash in on this Gwen Stacy fad with another title and just coming in here and trying to replace Deadpool with a character who they would own the cinematic rights to. But holy cow, that is not what this book was at all. I apologize for everything that I said. This book is full of humor, it's full of heart, and the character of Gwenpool, I can't believe I'm going to say this, she is a delight. Number 91, SNOTGIRL. I know a lot of people who love this book right from the beginning, but it took me a little while to warm up to it, and I think the reason why is because the character of SNOTGIRL herself isn't exactly likable. She's actually pretty self-centered and kind of ditzy and just not really a positive figure in any way, but then the more I read, the more I realized that was kind of the point of this character. She's kind of meant to just take us through the journey of someone like that, and honestly, Brian Lee O'Malley is succeeding. He is taking us along this journey and has me very interested to see what's going to happen to her character next. Number 90, Doom Patrol. This book came in and re-energized one of DC's oldest super teams. It took it in a bold new creative direction that has not been seen since Grant Morrison took over the book. In fact, if you were a fan of Grant Morrison's old run on this series, this feels like the spiritual successor to that. It feels like it is picking up right where that series left off, and honestly, it is so weird and freaky, but it's unapologetically weird and freaky, and I have to applaud the book for that. Number 89, Snowblind. This is the story of a kid living up in Alaska who finds out that his dad is on the run as part of the witness protection program. He discovers that everything that he knew about his life is a lie, and it just descends into this world of who does he trust, what story is real. Seriously, if there is any comic that the Coen brothers needed to adapt, it's this one. Number 88, Mother Panic. I know everybody is applying Doom Patrol and saying that it's the best book out there. However, after only 2 issues, Mother Panic is my personal favorite. That book has got amazing style. I am loving the protagonist, and holy cow, the way that it just blends this weird, trippy, Vertigo-style character into the world of Gotham is done so seamlessly. This book is total style and is full of substance to boot. If it were not for the fact that only 2 issues of it came out last year, it would have been way higher on this list. 87, Doctor Strange. Jason Aaron was tasked with coming in here and reinventing Doctor Strange to get everybody excited for the new movie, and he succeeded better than anybody could have expected. The storyline this year of The Last Days of Magic was an amazing tale to tell with the character of Doctor Strange. It was so good, I'm shocked no one thought of it before him. At number 86, Moonshine. During the days of Prohibition, an alcohol smuggler heads down to the Appalachian Mountains to try and convince a man out in the woods to sell his moonshine to his mob boss, only to discover they're all werewolves. Yeah, this book is an amazing combination of supernatural horror, but also crime noir drama. At number 85, Angel City. I know I have described many other books on this list with the word noir so far, and we're only through 15 titles. However, that is the best word to describe this book as well. This is an amazing look at an old school Hollywood noir story. When an actress suddenly turns up dead, one of her old friends has to go on the search to find her. It really reminds me of everything that I loved about old films like Sunset Boulevard and captures it perfectly in this comic. Number 84, Bandette. Imagine if Tintin had his own Catwoman and then they gave her a book. This is a story about the most upbeat and positive thief in all of France. It is a book about adventure and just lifting your spirits. It's a book that I recommend to all young readers, but also to anybody who just wants to smile. Plus, it's got some of the best artwork of any title on this list. Number 83, Astonishing Ant-Man. Nick Spencer brought his run on Ant-Man to a close this year, and I was fully satisfied with it. I love seeing the relationship between Scott and his daughter progress over this year. I also love his entire supporting cast come together. The big heist that they had to pull off this year was hilarious, and yet I couldn't help but be impressed by it. Seriously, I have no idea where Scott Lang is going to pop up next, but wherever he does, I really hope that he brings along the rest of his flunky crew with him, because they were one of the best things about this book. Number 82, Darkwing Duck. Listen, I might just be putting this on here for nostalgia purposes because I grew up loving Darkwing Duck, or I might be putting it on here simply because it's just a darn good book. I mean, if you did not grow up with this character and you wanted to always know, why do people love Darkwing Duck? This book captures it. The sense of humor, the fun adventures, it's all right here. In fact, this year it also had one of the most creative issues of any comic I've read, in which he goes to a comic book convention and actually has to jump from one comic book to the next, and they keep adapting him into the different styles of other comics. That issue alone got it up here on this list. This book isn't just a love letter to Darkwing Duck fans, it's also just a genuinely creative title. At number 81, Black Dog, The Dreams of Paul Nash. David McKeon, an artist who is best known for capturing the trippy imagination of Neil Gaiman, decided to make a biography of World War I surrealist artist Paul Nash. Now, surreal is the best word to describe this book because David McKeon was able to combine the far out there and bizarre dreams of this creator with the horrors rising up around the time of the First World War, and the two of those things blend together into a book that is just stunning to look at. This is one of those books that if you ever get a chance to just flip through it, every single page is going to leave an impression on you. Number 80, Silver Surfer. Dan Slott continues his love letter to this character and to the far out there, more imaginative side of the Marvel Universe. And as always, I say this every single year when I talk about this book, but Silver Surfer and Dawn Greenwood are two of my favorite characters to see interact in all of Marvel Comics. Number 79, Hillbilly. From the creator of Goon, this series is a look at some of the weirdest Appalachian folktales you've ever heard, all being told through the eyes of this, I don't really even know how to describe him. He's just kind of a lone badass who wanders around the hills encountering all of these strange creatures. It's almost like Southern Gothic Hellboy. 78, Archer and Armstrong. I know a lot of people out there who didn't really care for this new Archer and Armstrong series because it was nothing like the previous Archer and Armstrong series, and I have to admit, I love the previous Archer and Armstrong series, and those people are right, this isn't like the previous Archer and Armstrong series, but it's still really darn good. I have to applaud this book for being completely different from its predecessor, and yet still being an incredibly fun read. I can't help but smile when they have these two crazy characters going up against fishmen, a demon who has taken on the form of Billy Ray Cyrus, and a communist circus that's trying to clone our heroes. Man, if that description doesn't get you to read this book, I don't know what does. Number 77, Old Man Logan. Jeff Lemire had a big task put before him when he had to come in here and tell the story of Old Man Logan trapped in the present, because the character of Old Man Logan is a very fascinating one. He's someone who's vicious, he's someone who is brutal, and yet he's someone who's tired. He's someone who has seen too much, and Jeff Lemire is able to capture all of that perfectly. Number 76, Tetris, the games people play. This is not only the story of how Tetris came into existence and how it took the world by storm, which, just speaking as someone who didn't know that story before, it's actually very fascinating, and there were lots of little twists and turns back and forth that I never even considered, but it's also just a love letter to the video game industry of that time, telling the story of how early man started to form games, how that eventually led into people creating things solely for the purpose of games, and how that eventually even led into video games. If you don't care about Tetris at all, but you've never actually sat down and thought, how did video games come into existence? This actually paints a very interesting picture of that. Number 75, NAILBITER. Imagine Twin Peaks, but with way more serial killers. It's set in a town that has the highest number of serial killers in the entire world, and as it delves into the mystery of what causes all these serial killers and starts to explore each of them, this is actually one of the most darkly entertaining books out there. Number 74, Kill or Be Killed. Speaking of serial killers, again, I did not mean to put these two so close on the list. This is a very different look at the serial killer story. It's the story of a man who's down on his luck, and one night he decides he's going to commit suicide, only to at the last minute decide he wants to live, and suddenly he is spared, only to find out he was spared by a demon that says, I'm going to let you keep living, but you have to go out there and kill people for me. It's a very complex story that has many layers to it and actually does kind of ask the question, what would you do in that situation? Because when you see our protagonist struggling and suffering the way that he is, it does what any good book should do, and it puts you in his mind. Number 73, Big Trouble in Little China, Escape from New York. When I heard that Boom Comics was going to take these two franchises that they own the rights to and have them cross over, I thought, how on earth is that going to work? This is just going to be some goofy throwaway crossover. And no, it's not. It's actually one of the most delightful crossovers I've read this year. Crossovers are making a big comeback, and there are a lot to choose from out there. But honestly, this is the one that I had the most fun with last year. Seeing Snake Plissken and Jack Burton interact, they've become one of my favorite duos from this year, which is a sentence I never thought I'd say. Number 72, Red Hood and the Outlaws. How the heck is this book on this list? No, seriously, I really did not like the first Red Hood and the Outlaws series. I really didn't like Red Hood and Arsenal. Both of them were written by Scott Lobdell. Scott Lobdell is still writing this series. How did Rebirth fix this title so freaking much? Red Hood is being written as a better character than I have seen him in years. I am loving seeing the interactions between him and Artemis and Bizarro and him going up against the Black Mask has been a great story this year. Seriously, I am just shocked by how good this title has become. Number 71, Jughead. Last year, everybody applauded this title because Chip Zdarsky was on the book, and of course, Chip Zdarsky is going to write great, hilarious characters. That's what he's known for. However, when he left the book, everybody thought, oh geez, who's going to take over after him? Ryan North, the writer of Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, took over. I gotta be honest with you, I'm actually enjoying his book even more than Chip Zdarsky's. He's still writing fun, goofy, crazy adventures for Jughead, and it's just delightful. This is one of the best pick-me-up books out there. If you ever just need to smile, this is the book to read. Number 70, Reborn. When I heard the initial pitch of this title, that was going to basically be a woman who dies and goes into the afterlife only to discover it's some giant Lord of the Rings style battle going on at all times, and she's the chosen one they've all been waiting for to lead them to victory. I thought, well, that's interesting, but I don't really know why it has to be set in the afterlife. How is that going to have any kind of an impact on the story? But as I've read it and as I've seen the connection she made in the real world affecting her connections in the afterlife, I realized this is actually kind of brilliant. I really have to applaud Mark Millar for coming up with a really, truly original story. Number 69, Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. This is one of the best books for young readers out there. It's the story of a young girl who just genuinely loves science and just is constantly promoting education in every single issue. This is one of those books that whenever a kid comes into my store, I have to make sure that they leave with a copy of it. Number 68, New Superman. The story of China creating its very own Superman for their very own Justice League ended up not at all becoming the story I thought it was going to be. This is a story with a ton of heart. It's a story about family relations. It's a story about forming friends. It's a story about bettering yourself and becoming a better human being. This is a story that just captures so many different elements, and many of those elements are what I look for in a Superman book. Plus, the character of Kenan Kong, he's actually one of my favorite new characters this year. It is great to see this character who started off as a complete and total jerk, slowly learning to better himself, slowly becoming a better human being. Number 67, Omega Men. This is the first book from Tom King that you're going to see on this list, but it will not be the last because he is a writer who just took everyone by storm this year. And this is a book that showed that his expertise for writing books about war and crime and politics extends far beyond just the Earth. Number 66, Chew. Chew has been a cult classic favorite for years. It's been an incredibly imaginative book with a great sense of humor, and this is the year that that story finally came to an end, and I have to admit, I didn't expect a single thing that happened in this series. I would love to go into more details, but this thing becomes spoiler territory pretty much with every single issue. I really have to applaud that this year, this book went above and beyond anything I've seen from it in previous years, simply because it was not afraid to come in here and start tearing its own characters apart. It was not afraid to come in here and just go, oh, what's all this stuff we've been building up? Yeah, prepare to see that crumble down. This is not going to go the way you think it is. Number 65, Superman American Alien. This was a series that decided it's not important to tell the origin story of Superman. It's not important to tell how he got to Earth and all that stuff. We've heard it a dozen times. What's important is to show what eventually led to him becoming Superman. What were the important days in his life? This is a series where every single issue focuses on a different day that led up to him becoming the person that we know. And honestly, it was a brilliant idea for how to tell a Superman story. Number 64, Ali. Now, I might just be putting this on here because I'm a bit biased, because I will admit Muhammad Ali is one of my personal heroes. But even if I wasn't, I'd still probably put it on the list because this was a biography of one of the world's greatest athletes, but told it in a very different way. I've read many biographical comics before. This one actually felt like a documentary. This one was able to make it feel like I was actually watching newsreel footage. It made it feel like they actually had a camera there when these important events happened, even the events that no one ever saw. Number 63, Darth Vader. Kieran Gillen brought his epic run on this character to an end this year, and I gotta say, I was very impressed with that ending. It actually had some pretty chilling moments in there, and listen, I love the character of Dr. Aphra and the way that this led into her new series. I thought it didn't take away at all from Darth's own journey. This is a book that was able to balance all these characters incredibly well, and I think it added a lot of dimensions to a villain who we thought we knew for years. And number 62 is Rolling Blackouts. Now, this is the story of a group of journalists going over to Iraq to interview people about how the Iraq War affected them, especially refugees from the war. And when it comes to books like this, the entire point of them is really to expose you to a side of the world that you would never experience otherwise, and this book does that perfectly, but doesn't just show you Iraq and the people living over there and how they've been affected. It also makes a great statement about journalism. This book follows these journalists, and it really does focus on them talking about the art of crafting a story for journalism and how they would love to be able to tell different stories and be able to focus on different things, but they have to be able to sell these stories, and that is a major problem with journalism that they face every single day. This is a book that really just covers a lot of territory. It really does expose so many different stories from so many different points of views. At number 61, Unworthy Thor. This is the story of Thor, Odin's son, who lost his hammer and has been struggling to prove himself worthy again, and it is a tale of a man who is just beaten down, who has reached his breaking point. All of that being mixed together with some of the biggest, craziest sci-fi elements you've seen in a book this year. It is a very human story, despite the fact that it stars space gods. Number 60, Patsy Walker, aka HELLCAT. I will admit, when I first read this series, I wasn't really digging it. I thought it was a little bit too cute, a little bit too charming, which I know is a weird thing for me to say, but it just felt like a book where there were no threats, where it was just everything was going to be resolved. But then eventually I realized that's the point of this series. The entire point of this series is to be uplifting. It's there to be fun. It's basically meant to be Marvel's version of the Archie comics, and it achieves that perfectly. As I said at the beginning of this episode, I want to look at what audiences these books are aimed at, and this book hits its audience perfectly. For that audience out there that just wants fun, uplifting characters, that's what this book is. Number 59, Midnighter and Midnighter Apollo. I'm combining these books together because they were both written by the exact same person, and Midnighter and Apollo is basically just a continuation of the Midnighter series, but I'm putting them on the list because both these titles are just the perfect combination of ass-kicking action and heart. I never expected to find so much character and so much heart in a Midnighter series, and yet Orlando is the perfect writer to come in here and deliver it. I have been consistently stunned by the depth that this writer has been able to give every single character, and also in the Midnighter and Apollo series, just how heart-touching it's been. 58, Birthright. This is one of those series that I am consistently stunned at how nobody else ever puts it on their best of list. Every single issue always gets good reviews, but no one ever puts it on a best of list. But anyway, that's aside the point. The reason why I'm putting it on my best of the year list is because this is a book with an amazing premise. It's a story of a kid who disappears one day, and then a year later he pops back up as some giant Conan the Barbarian looking dude, says he's been off in this other dimension fighting this evil warlord, and now the forces of this evil king have made their way into our world and he has to go around slaying them, only for it to be revealed he's actually one of the evil guys himself. He's actually been corrupted and he's come here to slay good guys. But this was the year that this book actually made me start to question that. Maybe this character hasn't been evil. Maybe he is good and he just has this evil voice in his head, but maybe what he's doing is right. This is a book that constantly has me double guessing myself, and I really gotta hand it to this series because up until this year, I was convinced I knew what was happening. Number 57, Green Lanterns. Now, ever since Jeff Johns left the Green Lantern franchise, it's been really hard for any other writer to come in here and really make an impact on this universe, but this year, the Green Lantern series really picked up that torch and started to carry it, because not only did it start to introduce brand new elements to the history of these lanterns, elements that really felt natural, felt like, okay, these are the perfect next steps to take with these characters, but also it started to focus on the two new Green Lanterns, Jessica Cruz and Simon Baz, and the two of them working together have been a delight to read. These are two of my favorite characters from any series this year, especially Jessica Cruz. Watching someone who suffers with anxiety and struggles to deal with this fear that she has to face every single day, still being able to move past it, still being able to push for it, and still being able to be rewarded with a Green Lantern ring, that is a message of hope to so many readers out there. Number 56, Future Quest. For anybody out there who is an old fan of Hanna-Barbera and all their action cartoons, this was the love letter you have been waiting for. This is a series that captured the adventure of Johnny Quest, the mysteries of Space Ghost, the fun adventures of, well, I don't know, the Herculoids. There's so many to choose from. I can't pick one character to focus on in this little mini review because so many characters are used, and yet they all fit together into this series perfectly. This is one of the few times in which I have seen characters from past series get adapted into the modern age, and it just fits. It just feels perfect. It feels natural. It feels great to see all these characters finally crossing together for one big giant adventure. Number 55, The Ultimates. I love that Al Ewing came in here and said, hey, you know, Marvel has a lot of really cool giant space creatures out there. How about we actually start focusing on that? How about we actually explore how mind-blowing some elements of the Marvel Universe is? This is a book that swung for the fences harder than any other title this year, and when you've got Galactus holding our heroes outside the boundaries of time and space, showing them the liquidy flow of the history of the Marvel Universe, hey man, no other book has ever attempted stuff like this, and I got to applaud them for going that far. Number 54, The Violent. Warning, do not read The Violent if you ever want to be happy. This is a book about a married couple with a child who they had a bit of a tattered past. They had some dark spots in their closet, and this is the story of when, over the course of just a few days, all of that comes back and it is all just destroyed so quickly. As I said, this is not a book to make you feel good. I've already covered a couple of those. This is a book that after you read it, you just have to sit there and let it all sink in, because it is a book that will leave an impact on you. Number 53, Titans. I have nominated a couple of books on this list so far who are here mostly for the characters. This is another one of those books, and I'm not ashamed of that because I can't help it. It just feels good to see Wally back with the Titans. It feels good to see the Titans being a family again. That was one of the things that always made the Titans unique. They were a family, and this book captures that so well. And also, it is just a great love letter to how much these characters, well, love each other. This is a book that is all about these people coming back together, being brought together basically by how much they care about each other. I mean, just watching Wally in the first storyline push himself to his limits, even though he knows what will happen to him, just because he cares about his friends that much. That's what the Titans book should be, and this captures it very well. Number 52, Cage. Genndy Tartakovsky finally gave his love letter to Luke Cage and how crazy and wacky his adventures from the 1970s were, and it captures not only that style, but also just the insane, trippy imagination of Genndy Tartakovsky himself. This is the guy who created Samurai Jack and Dexter's Lab, and it feels like he was always holding back after you read this. After you read this, it's like, oh, this is what this guy is allowed to do when he gets to go off. This book is so much fun and so wild and so hilarious, and it's just so many things all at once. I can't sum it all up for you here. I need a full episode to talk about it, but I can't because we have to now move into 51, Octopus Pie. I never actually read Octopus Pie until this year when Image Comics started putting out all their chapters into trades, but this instantly became a personal favorite for me. Most webcomics take months for me to warm up to the characters, but here it happened almost instantly, and it's because these characters are so relatable. There's no big crazy sci-fi elements, there's no little robot buddies. Seriously, how many webcomics are going to give their protagonist robot buddies? Why is that such a common theme in webcomics? This is just a slice of life story about a girl trying to make it in New York with her friends, and the only thing that really makes it stand out is just simply how good it is. It's how witty the characters are. It's how heartwarming their adventures are. It's how this story can make you laugh one minute and then tug at your heartstrings the very next. That's it for the first installment in our top 100 comics of 2016. Come back next time as we look at numbers 50 through 26. And remember, if you like this, then make sure that you share it around the web. We're putting a lot of work into these episodes, so it would mean so much to me if you help spread these episodes around. Thanks again, everyone, and remember, if you want to get in touch with me around the web, you can always find me on Twitter, Tumblr, and Twitch at Professor Thorgy. So thanks again, everyone. Come back next time.